Do you ever feel like recovery is just too unbearable and too much to handle? Because you're not the only one. And I came across this concept a few months ago, and I've spent the past 2 months thinking about it, and I'd like to share it with you as well. And that is the concept of how to bear the unbearable, how to get through the unget-throughable. Let's get into the video. So the crux of this hypothesis is, if you are experiencing something that truly feels unbearable, but you're actively thinking about how unbearable it is, you are in fact bearing it in that very moment. Makes you think, doesn't it? So even though your thoughts may be, this is unbearable, I can't do it, the truth actually is, even though this feels unbearable, I'm bearing it. Even though this feels impossible to get through, I'm getting through it, even though it doesn't feel like it. Because when it comes down to it, if you weren't bearing it, if you weren't tolerating it to some degree, even if it feels intolerable, your body has built-in defense mechanisms to shut itself down from the things that it physically cannot bear. The very fact that you're having an experience means it is bearable because you're bearing it and you are getting through it, but it can absolutely feel unbearable while it's going on. And even the feeling that something is unbearable is a signifier that there is some frightened part of you that needs to be shown love. Whether that is self-compassion that you need to work on and develop, whether that is reaching out to someone you know you have been able to count on for encouragement or for support, or even just to listen to you and to validate what you're going through. When you're in those moments, though, where you are so overwhelmed with what feels unbearable, just try to take a minute to slow down, to take a deep breath, to try to make your exhale longer than your inhale, because that helps regulate your parasympathetic nervous system. And then just try to notice, 1, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm breathing. If you're sitting with your feet on the ground, if you're standing or wherever you are, my feet are on the ground. I am here. These sound so cheesy, but literally these are the things that in the moment can just take the edge off and turn the volume on that unbearable chaos down just enough so you can be reminded that, hey, I'm actually getting through this even though it doesn't feel like I am. Listen to the sounds around you. Now, that can be a little tricky if you're someone like me who deals with sensory overload and hyperacusis. Sometimes listening to sounds is the opposite of what you need to do. You need to put on noise-canceling headphones. Do that if you need to. The point is, just be aware of your surroundings in a neutral, observant way, kind of like meditation. And repeat to yourself, I'm still alive, I'm still alive. Even when you're going through the most painful, the most unbearable, the most seemingly impossible, unget-throughable things in your life, if you're thinking about how horrible they are to get through, you are still getting through them, which means, by definition, you're still alive. You're still alive. You're still alive. And that is worth celebrating. That is a win. That is a victory that no one can take from you. And again, remember, if there's ever a moment that is truly unbearable, that is ever truly too much for your body to physically handle, your body will literally go unconscious to protect you. I actually have a really specific firsthand example of this because it's happened to me more times than I can count. I mentioned that I deal with sensory overload and hyperacusis, and I'm extremely sensitive to noise. So during the months of like March till late October, when all the lawn mowing and yard work is going on, lawnmowers, weed eaters, leaf blowers, all of those send my nervous system into a state that can only be described as if it's being plugged into an electrical outlet and just being electrocuted the entire time the noise is going on. My nervous system's defense mechanism for that is not something that I consciously choose to do, but it's just something that happens, and that is I'm lying here flat in bed. I am screaming at the top of my lungs because countering the noise outside with that noise and that pressure and that sense of release that the screaming gives is my nervous system subconsciously trying to regulate itself. It sounds so backwards, but that's really what it is. However, there are times where I have been screaming for so long, the noise has not stopped all day, my body knows it cannot take it. Roger will suddenly hear the screaming stop, and he'll walk in here, and I'll be laying there completely unconscious because my nervous system has given out on me because it got to the point where the pain truly was unbearable in that moment. So I'm literally living proof that your nervous system will protect you if something is, in fact, absolutely unbearable and something you're not going to be able to get through. In those moments, that is my nervous system and my body actively protecting me from something that it perceives as so painful it is unbearable. I always come to after a while. It always takes a little bit of time to recover, but I do get back to baseline. And that is just the perfect example of literally how you will never have to experience a truly unbearable moment in life, even if it feels like the most unbearable thing, Because if you're experiencing it, you are by definition bearing it. You are by definition getting through the unget-throughable. And your body has built-in mechanisms to protect you from the things that are actually impossible and that are actually unbearable. So the next time you find yourself thinking about how unbearable something feels, try not to judge yourself for feeling that, but also try to remind yourself, if this was truly unbearable, I wouldn't be afraid of it being unbearable. I'd be unconscious and I wouldn't be bearing it. But here I am, alive, bearing it anyway, and that's power. If you feel comfortable sharing, let me know down in the comments below, what are some moments you've had in life where you thought things were absolutely unbearable and you could not get through them, but you now have evidence that in fact you did get through them, and maybe you even came out better on the other side, and maybe it resulted in things that ended up being better than you could ever imagine, or maybe you just proved that yes, you actually can get through something that feels impossible, which then means you can keep building on that evidence and store up a library of instances where you have felt like something is impossible, unbearable, unget-throughable, yet you have gotten through it anyway, you bared it anyway, you did the thing anyway. That is a win, and it's proof that you can, in fact, bear the unbearable and get through the unget-throughable, and you're not the exception to the rule. I can tell you that because I thought I was the exception to the rule. And I'm not either.